welcome. I'm so excited to be meeting with you. I'm so excited to have my really good friends, Stephanie and Madeline, on here with me as well. We honestly couldn't be more and more excited. We're going to get into a lot of great information. But before we do so, in the chat box, drop it in how you are feeling today, what you're going through, what you're thinking about, where you're at emotionally. Drop it in the chat box. I want to see responses from every single person in the chat box. Oldie is doing good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Mary's doing okay. Jackie's exhausted. Angie is tired, but okay. Adrian's having a good day, but very anxious. Bree is was feeling tired, but feeling much better. Jody's amazing. Madeline's a little tired, but excited. Burkett is doing amazing. Let's see, Apollinaire is feeling good. Awesome. Hollis is tired and hopeful. Amazing. So I'm super excited for tonight's session. Tonight was actually going to be an entirely different workshop. It was going to be on finances. But I felt that after the passing of Twitch and also going through a lot of seasonal depression from experiencing my clients going through seasonal depression, seeing it on social media, I felt that this was more timely and appropriate, you know? And in specific, one of the things that I've realized throughout my mental health journey is that a lot of mental health illnesses and conditions and just occurrences could be best resolved by having more information, information that could equip you with understanding your own journey, that could equip you with understanding somebody else's journey, and also information that when delivered appropriately from qualified people, like we can deliver, can also allow you to maybe save somebody else's life, right? And for tonight's session, we have not rehearsed this, so please give us some grace. We're human just like you all, but we're excited to be sharing a lot of info. I'm going to let Madeline and Stephanie speak more about their experiences and their journeys. But let me put the pin on Madeline real quickly to introduce her. So Madeline is actually one of my very best friends. We met in 2014, I believe. And Madeline's one of New York City's top licensed clinical social workers. I am not just saying this because she's my friend, it's a fact. She is one of the best in the game. And she's also a professor at Fordham University, where she teaches a lot of people who are looking to do what she does. And she is somebody that personally I look up to in a variety of ways, but especially in this sense, because there's a lot of overlap between social work and therapy and coaching. And I'm so honored to have Madeline on here. And Madeline, before I continue, is there anything that you want to say about yourself before we get into the nitty-gritty?
The only thing I want to add is that I just opened up my mental health clinic. And so that's going to be a resource for anyone who either needs mental health services or knows someone who does need mental health services. Because the number one thing I hear from people is, I've tried getting a therapist, I've tried getting help. It's either waiting list, they don't call me back, or there's no bilingual, multicultural therapist available, and so on and so forth. So my clinic is here to answer that call. And I will be putting the information on the chat for everyone.
Thank you, Madeline. And then we have the lovely Miss Stephanie, who is also an actress, and she's also a former suicide prevention hotline correspondent. And she'll be talking a lot about the strategies and warning signs that one can utilize and look for when dealing with somebody or yourself, potentially, if you're going through a crisis or a moment where you are experiencing suicidal thoughts and ideation. And Stephanie, before I continue, is there anything that you would like to say before I continue on?
No, just hi everybody. Thanks for coming, and I hope that this is helpful for you guys.
Amazing. So before we get into it, I always like to start my sessions the very same way so you guys can humor me, and if possible, please close your eyes. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a slower, deep breath in. And exhale. And take another slower, Deep breath in. And exhale. And with your eyes still closed, I want you guys to get into the proper headspace, the heart space that you may need for whatever this session is going to be for you. Whether you are here for information, inspiration, support, maybe to release some heaviness from your heart or from your minds, whatever it is that you want, I invite you to allow this session to be there for you. And when I say one, not yet, open your eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you are back and can see my screen, hear my voice, and see my face, drop me a 111 in the chat, please. See my screen, hear my voice, see my face. Awesome, 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 awesome. So welcome to tonight's session. I'm very, very excited. We're going to be covering quite a few things. I'm going to be getting into some general high-level information about mental health, some challenges to mental health, warning signs, what to do. And if time permits, I want to get into mental clutter / mental decluttering, which is a potential trigger to mental health instability and illnesses. Now, as you guys already met us, we have Stephanie, myself, and Madeline. We all have different experiences and different journeys and a pretty unique relationship to mental health. You know, before I get into the details about mental health, I want to share a little bit about me, and I don't want to focus on the coaching information or my entertainment career or anything like that, but I actually want to share about my story regarding my mental health journey. When I graduated college, I had, unbeknownst to me at the time, really, really high anxiety and depression, which from what I've learned and studied, it's logically almost those two things do almost completely different things to your body. So I was very surprised when I was not diagnosed with just one thing, but with two things. And through my journey and my own mental health journey and overcoming depression and anxiety, I learned that it is so important to understand what is happening with you, what is happening with your mind, with your emotions, with every aspect of your life that is touched because you may not be feeling your best. And if we can be honest, I'm sure we've all have had those moments where we felt less than our best, where we felt sad, where we felt heavy, where life was really, really difficult, whether it was because you lost a job like I did at one point, or because you went through a relationship that really challenged and tested you, or because life is life and life has a weird way of making life difficult for you and you don't know how to deal with feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and just overburdened with so many different things. And for me, my symptoms got so bad to the point where I could barely dance. I was having so many health issues. I was constantly living in panic and in fear. And it took me maybe about 2 to 3 years of consistent working on my mind and on my emotions to start feeling like myself again. And a lot has since changed in the 10 or so years from when I really worked on my depression and anxiety, where now there's more resources available, there's more strategies available. Therapy and coaching has taken leaps and bounds in supporting people going through these things. And I say all this to say, because one thing that has remained consistent from what I've seen back then and now is that there's still a big stigma surrounding mental health, a stigma that unfortunately the person who may be going through their own mental health condition is subjecting themselves to. It was very uncomfortable for me to admit and feel how sad and lonely and miserable and isolated my life had become. And I was almost embarrassed to even admit that. I was like, no, this cannot be me. I'm not sad. Life is great. There's so many things for me to be grateful for. But in reality, that's not how I felt. And if we can be honest, and I would actually invite you to answer this in the chat box if you're comfortable, if you can relate to anything that I've shared so far, please drop me a 111 in the chat, because part of this session is geared to to really support people who are going through very same things or have gone through the very same things or are seeing people in their lives going through the very same things. And it is so important to not just have the conversations every once in a while and talk to people when it's convenient, but your health includes your mindset and it includes your mental health. And I really want to be able to create a space for you guys where if you guys need to get something off your chest or ask a question, you are dealing with 3 very qualified people who are here to support you. And I want to give you guys credit for even just acknowledging that you could relate to some of my story, because that is a huge thing that I was really, really struggling with doing when I was in the throes of my depression and anxiety. And the way that it came about was I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I revealed to her that I started thinking about just what would happen if I wasn't here. And I'm so grateful that I have the mom that I have, because she took no chances. She made me move back to her house until she could feel that I was better, right? And sometimes you may need those people that may take those drastic actions, but not everybody has that, right? Not everybody has that level of support, or that parent, or that friend, or that sibling that is really gonna look out for you, maybe more so than you might in that moment, right? And that's why the 3 of us are so passionate in coming together within this topic to give people, especially those that may not have the support or the resources, hopefully a lot of inspiration that it gets better, and as well, a lot of information. And I want to start with this quote by Kerry Washington. She says, "I think it's really important to take the stigma away from mental health. My brain and my heart are really important to me. I don't know why I wouldn't seek help to have those things be as healthy as my teeth." You see, people that are struggling with their mental health, whether it is via depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, or severe stress, they can mask it well. Trust me, I know I'm the king of masking when I'm not doing well, right? And it's something that I've had to work through, and it's taken time and patience and a lot of work, but there's so much healing on the other side of honesty, right? And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I can't stress this enough, is we want to normalize the conversation, because you cannot heal what you are not honest about. And sometimes the best step that you can take in order to heal is to admit first to yourself how you really feel. And I just want to make it abundantly clear. I want to make it abundantly clear that there is no shame in how you feel. There is no shame if you feel sad, if you feel depressed, if you feel anxious, if you feel nervous, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel jealous, if you feel spiteful. There is no shame in how you feel. Your feelings are your feelings, and your feelings are a feedback mechanism allowing you to know exactly how your life is going. And I really want to stress this point first and foremost, because the first person that needs you is you. And it really starts with checking in on how you are feeling. Now, at the beginning of this session, I asked, how's everybody feeling? Drop it in the chat. Now, I want to highlight this feelings wheel by Calm, right? And it's a little small on my screen, so I'm going to do my best to explain it. But according to Calm, there's about 7 main buckets of feelings. There's fearful, there's bad, surprised, happy, sad, disgusted, and angry. 7 main buckets of feelings, right? And within these 7 main buckets, there's sub feelings. For example, under surprise, there's startled, there's confused, there's amazed, there's excited, right? Under happy, there's playful, content, interested, proud, accepted, powerful, peaceful, right? And then within angry, there's let down, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, critical. So many different sub feelings within what seems to be just 7 main brackets of feelings, right? And I want you guys to look at this feelings wheel. And I want you to check in with yourself. And maybe you can identify the sub feeling, right? Maybe you can't distinguish if it's between, shocked or perplexed or astonished, which all of these three words bring up different connotations. But maybe you can identify with the different colors. Maybe perhaps you're more in the goldish orange phase or in the rose pink, right? And I want you to look at the color wheel and I want you to ask yourself, what feeling do I most identify with normally? When I say normally, I mean, yes, there are moments where we're happier than others, and there are moments where something happens and we feel a little disappointed. But for the most part, as humans, we have a baseline of an emotion that kind of becomes our way of being, right? And one of the easiest examples is when we see people who never look happy. We're always like, wow, she kind of looks a little, always kind of sad. Or we always see that person who's always like, always happy, jump, skipping a step. He looks really, really, phenomenal and excited. And we can just tell that person seems to be always happy, right? And I want you guys to identify what is the feeling that you can most associate with almost day to day, week to week, month to month. I'm going to give you guys about a minute or so just to really check in with yourself. And then I want you guys to drop it in the chat box. What is the feeling or the color, right, that you most identify with? Angie, thank you, Angie, for responding so quickly. Angie saying she feels fearful. I feel all the fear. Hollis is pensive. Angie, thank you, Angie, for clarifying. So Angie is pretty much in the fear quadrant, right? Bree is back and forth between fearful and also happy. Stephanie, stressed and excited. Apollinario is angry. Thank you guys for really checking in with yourselves. Madeline is saying to them, when the color, it's happiness, but it takes a lot to get to the place where this is my baseline. Fearful, bad, happy, sad. Now, as mentioned, this is just your baseline of emotion, if this is true, right? And I want to, again, clarify and repeat once again that there is no good or bad feeling. There is no invalid feeling, right? What I offer up that if this is your baseline, and we're going to get into this in a few more minutes, then ask yourself, how would you like to feel? If you could take a magic pill or a potion, or if I could just sprinkle some little salt on your shoulder and make you feel one specific way, what would be the feeling that you would like to inhabit going forward? And this is an important question to ask, because a lot of times when it comes to identifying where you want to go, you got to know where you're at, right? And part of what I want to highlight is that you can also start creating a level of intentionality with how you want to feel. Now, there's two things that I want to quickly address. Madeline said that it took a lot to get to the place where happiness was her baseline. I can relate, because as I mentioned, I went through my anxiety and depression, and because life does have a way of throwing us some twists and turns, a curveball of sorts, right? It does take work to be happy. And it does take work to get into a healthy way of being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? And part of what we are doing in this session is to help you guys start beginning some of this work, right? It's to start the process of going through your journey. And that's a great segue into Apollinario's question, where he says, is it wrong to want to have a healthy balance of all of them? See, I want to park it there right there for a second, because it is not wrong at all, right? And as humans, we should have full access to a range of emotions, right? Because that is a healthy lifestyle, naturally doing so. When you live just a regular, well-balanced life, there are going to be days, there are going to be moments and periods where things are not going to go your way, or you may lose somebody that you love, You may go through a financial setback that may challenge you. And a healthy person would have a normal response to something that is challenging. And it is not wrong to feel sad or angry. And I don't want to make anybody's emotional state wrong, right? The only question that I would want to ask you guys is if you have an alternative feeling that you would like to feel as your baseline, then that's what I would encourage you to work towards, right? And as I'm seeing in the chat box, happiness, right, just like sadness and anger and depression will look differently for every single person, So it is not wrong to go through the range of emotions, right? But if your normal day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month feeling, especially when you're by yourself or when you're overworked or overwhelmed and you're really struggling with finding the joy or positivity or just the light in life, then perhaps if I can invite you to, there's some work that you may want to do to get to a better place. If this is making sense to you, drop me a 111 in the chat if this is making sense to you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And guys, as we go, please feel free to drop in any questions as we continue throughout the session. We're gonna leave room for questions at the end, but if you have any questions as we go, please don't be afraid to drop them in the chat box. Now, I want to give you guys some facts about mental health, because as mentioned, there's a lot of, information that is available and that should be made more available. And also we want to normalize the conversation, right? When I was preparing for this session, when I did it for the first time a few months ago, I did a lot of research. And some of the facts that surprised me were as follows: that more than 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some point in their lifetime. More than 50% of people. That means that even in this Zoom alone, right, that there's 15 of us, maybe 7 or 8 of us will go through a mental illness or challenge at some point. 1 in 5 Americans experience mental illness every single year. That means that there's 15 of us on this call, there's about 3 of us that may be going through a mental challenge at some point. 1 in 5 had a seriously debilitating mental illness at some point. And I don't want to make this a Debbie Downer session. It's already a heavy topic. It's already a challenging topic. It's already a conversation that can make people uncomfortable. But what I want to highlight is the main thing is that it's more common than one may think. Number 2, if you're going through something, you're not alone. And number 3 is the fact that there's studies on the frequency or the occurrences that have transpired within this field alone mean that there's a lot of studies and strategies available for you to improve your mental health. You see, I believe that every illness, every condition, every diagnosis has a cause. They have symptoms, they have a progression, and there's also treatment. And if there's not treatment available just yet, there will be a treatment available. And I say this because as somebody who went through his own journey, physically and mentally, with a lot of different ailments, I can attest to you that there is hope on the other side. And 2, that though it may not be easy, though you may not feel good right now, though you may be challenged with anxiety and stress and setbacks, whether professionally, financially, emotionally, personally, there may be certain instances that you wish didn't happen in your life. I'm here to tell you, as living proof, that there is hope available to you. There's information available to you. There's strategies available to you that can support you. And Madeline and Stephanie and myself, we're going to do our best tonight to support you as much as we can. But I just wanted to highlight these facts because I want you guys to also realize if you are going through something, that you're not alone. And if you really want some hands-on support tonight from either one of the 3 of us, please feel free to drop in the chat that you would like support. Just drop the word support in the chat, and I promise you, we will support you even more so, right? Because we want to make sure that this session is for you guys, not for us, but to really support, love on you guys, and give you guys whatever it is that you may need to the best of our ability. Thank you, Angie, for opening up. And I know we connected very, very briefly over the weekend on Instagram, and we haven't officially met, but I just want to commend you for really showing up for yourself. And we're going to take shares in later on in the session, but I really want you guys to allow yourself to be supported. Thank you, Fred, for opening up. And just the act of saying that you want support is tremendous. It is tremendous, tremendous, tremendous. Because one of the things that Madeline and Stephanie are going to talk about in a second is that so often people suffer in silence. So often people are sad, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're going through difficulty, and they're by themselves, but you do not have to be by yourself. Angie, Fred, and Adrian, we're definitely going to be supporting you guys throughout tonight's session. Thank you, Oldie. Right? And thank you, Maldonado. And I really cannot stress this enough that what you guys just did is a huge act of courage and also a huge act of supporting yourself, which is more than anybody could ever ask for. Now, part of supporting you guys is by giving you guys information, right? Information in regards to mental health can be really, really life-changing. You know, some of the challenges that I want to highlight that could, lead to mental health instability are things like abuse or trauma, whether in your childhood or in your adulthood. Loneliness. Madeline can talk more about this because she dealt with this more so than I did, but during the pandemic, there were a lot of mental health challenges that were transpiring because of the isolation. Thirdly, unstable finances. For me, this is something that I've had to work through for years because I don't know about you guys, but financially, I was not raised to be financially smart. My financial plan was make money, spend money, get into debt. And I got into such bad debt that the level of stress and anxiety that would keep me up at night and what is permeate my way of being day to day was tremendously high, right? And, we want to go through this list, succinctly, but I want to highlight that these different avenues, whether it is unstable finances, or physical health issues, or even unstable living, do have an impact on your mental health, right? And one of the things that I want you guys to take inventory of is seeing what could be some contributing factors in your life that could be adding to where your mental health is today. Because yes, we want to address the mental health for sure, right? With that said, part of addressing it is seeing what areas in our life maybe we may need to also look at some point to make sure that we don't go back to feeling the way that we were, right? To continue on with the list, there's severe stress, physical health issues, unstable living or housing, drug or alcohol abuse, mental cluttering. Me personally, one of the things that stressed me out a lot outside of finances were physical health issues. I've had this really irrational fear of poor health and dying since I was a young kid. And it's something that I've had to work through, and I'm still working through, and I'm okay with admitting it because part of my mental health journey is being able to accept the fact that, for one, I am not perfect, two, I'm human, and three, there are things that do scare me. And that's normal. It's fine. And I want you guys to go through this list. And if you're comfortable, maybe drop it in the chat box to see what are certain things right now in your life that could be affecting your health from this list. Is it the trauma? Is it loneliness? Is it the finances? Maybe you're living under chronic stress. Maybe you're having some physical health issues that are scaring you. Thank you, Maldonado and Adrian. Stress is a really, really big thing. Bree, thank you again for sharing stress and trauma. Angie saying trauma, financial loss, stress, mental clutter, being an assault survivor, I can relate to you. Unstable finances, right? And there's so many things, even Madeline. Madeline is one of the best social workers that I know that lives in New York City, right? And Madeline is somebody that the nature of her work is very demanding emotionally and physically, right? Let alone she did something beautiful by launching her own clinic, right? And it's a lot of work, right? And if you guys can gather from this list, you're not alone. Everybody is going through something. Everybody is going through something, right? And I want you guys to look at this list of people sharing and seeing like, wow, I don't have to worry about this by myself. I don't have to go through the situation by myself. Yes, we do want to get to a baseline where you're feeling stable, where you're feeling happy, where you're feeling healthy, right? And you will get there with time, with doing the work, following the right strategies, you will get there. But for right now, allow yourself to realize you're not by yourself. You are not by yourself. And if there's hope for one person, that means that there's hope for you too. Before I continue on, if there's any questions, please drop them in the chat. If there's any questions, please drop them in the chat, right? Because what I'm seeing now is that there's a lot of people who are going through something, right? Just like I'm going through my own thing. Madeline's going through her own thing. Stephanie's going through her own thing. You know, unfortunately, as we saw, you know, Twitch was going through something so severe that it led to what is seen to be suicide, right? Which is incredibly sad because as an artist, you know, as a dancer, you know, Twitch was one of the people that we saw really elevate the skill and the career of dancing to such great heights, right? So seeing somebody who seemingly looked so joyful and happy and successful with the family, the finances, the career, lose his life to suicide, right? Shows to me that there's nobody immune to mental health challenges. Life will test you. It's going to challenge you. It'll test you. But if you learn strategies and tips and create a daily practice that can support you, it doesn't have to be. Now, some common practices, some common manifestations of, Brie, I'll get into that in a little later on in the session, but I got you. Some common manifestations of mental health: depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, and heightened isolation. From my research, these seem to be the 5 most common manifestations of mental health challenges, right? And what I offer up is you can use this as almost like as a warning sign of sorts. And we're going to get into more of the detail as to what these different things could look like, especially for depression and anxiety, right? But these are 5 of the most common mental health challenges that display themselves in adults, right? Now, these manifestations, right, whether it is depression or anxiety or OCD or what have you, do have very frequent common warning signs, right? And some of the warning signs, which Stephanie and Madeline are going to get into in more detail in a few minutes, can consist of extended or frequent periods of sadness, extended or frequent periods of numbness, heightened generalized fear, panic, or anxiety, frequent tiredness, frequent overwhelm, and making decisions are difficult. And now this list doesn't necessarily mean that you are depressed or that you have anxiety or that you have OCD, but these are some of the warning signs that can tell you, hey, you may need to check in with yourself. You may need support. You may want to slow down. These are warning signs that if somebody else is exhibiting, perhaps you may want to probe a little deeper. And we're going to get into how to support other people in a second, right? But these warning signs are very, very important, right? For me, at the end of last year, after I had COVID, I developed this crazy, really uncomfortable, painful skin condition that took over every part of my body with the exception of my face. And it was to the point where nothing was working. No medication was working, no prescription was working, no diet was working, nothing was working. And it was making me be really, really sad. And I was also isolating myself. I'm already a very independent type of person, but I was isolating myself so much so that people would call me, "Are you okay? Are you alive?" Because I was so embarrassed. I was so sad. I was getting anxious and overwhelmed because I couldn't audition. A lot of what I do career-wise is based on my looks, whether it is via coaching or entertainment, that when my skin decided to have its moment and take over pretty much everything with the exception of my face, I didn't know how to feel. And I was starting to display symptoms of potential depression and anxiety again, right? So because I knew these warning signs, I decided, okay, we need to get emotional support. We need to ramp up our daily practice of mental health habits in order to circumvent anything from getting worse to the point of a full-blown case of depression or anxiety, right? And that's why these warning signs are so critically important, whether for yourself or for other people, because if you see yourself exhibiting some of these warning signs, that is the first sign for you that perhaps you may need to ask for support. And trust me, I know asking for support is not a walk in the park. It took me years to ask for what I wanted. It took me years to say, I am not feeling well. Can somebody please help me? I don't care if that was my mom or my sister or a friend. Asking for support was probably the biggest thing that I had to learn how to do. And to be honest, it is something that naturally we are not usually comfortable with doing. And before I get into this next section really, really quickly, if you find yourself being uncomfortable with even communicating how you're honestly feeling and asking for support, whether that is a conversation or for somebody, to take you to your doctor, or for somebody to get a really good look at how you're actually doing. If you struggle with being open and honest with other people, and there's nothing wrong with that, in the chat box, please drop me a 333 if you know that that is something that you struggle with. Thank you, Oldie. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Burkett. Thank you, Bree. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Hollis. Now, if you guys can see, I hope you guys are getting a little more relief going through this session, because that means that, for one, you're not alone. And it is so, so normal. But what I want to do is help you guys denormalize habits that may not be working for you. Denormalize not asking for support when you need it. Denormalize not feeling good when you deserve to feel good about yourself and about your life, right? We want to also denormalize the things that may not be helping you guys out, right? Now, what I want to do before I kick it over to Madeline is I want to do a very quick exercise. If you guys have a pen and paper, or even in your phone, something to take notes on, I want you guys to prepare yourself to go through a little journey with me in about a second. If you guys are ready for this journey, type the word journey in the chat box. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Awesome. So this is something that I do with my private clients, and I really felt that I could really help empower some people and also release some information, some stress, some anxiety. And I'm going to be doing this right alongside you guys, right? What I want you guys to do is to first close your eyes. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. And take another slower, 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 deep breath in. And exhale. And I want you to bring the feeling that you first identified as your baseline to your mind and to your heart. Bring that feeling up. Whether it was stress, anxiety, fear, anger, whatever your feeling was. And I want you to think about what you would like to say about and to this feeling, as if this feeling were a person or a thing. When I bring you guys back, I want you to just completely divulge whatever emotion or thought concerning this feeling. I'm going to give you guys about 2 to 3 minutes It is going to be something that you are going to do for you and you alone. Nobody has to see this paper or your notes. Nobody has to know about it. You can be as honest, as raw, as angry, as emotional as you want to be. If you feel more comfortable turning off your cameras, I encourage you to do so. But the purpose of this is to help you guys get a little bit more relief in yourself. So again, before I bring you guys back, you're going to open your eyes when I say one, and you're going to share to yourself about this feeling, your thoughts around it, what you would like to say to this feeling. If it were a person, be as open and as honest as possible. When I get to one, open your eyes and begin writing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, time. You've been writing for about 3 minutes. If you didn't finish, it's okay. This is something that I offer up that you do for yourself routinely and independently. What I want you guys to do after the session, maybe not directly after, but I want you to write a separate letter to the feeling that you wish to embody, the feeling that you wish to embody as your baseline. what it would mean for you to embody that feeling, what it would mean for you if you lived your life with more of that feeling, what your life maybe would look like, right? Part of what this does scientifically is it allows your mind to think as if you were already that person. And it's also going to direct your mind more from the more negative, heavier emotions, to the more positive emotions that you're so looking to achieve, right? So after the session, whenever you want to, I offer up that you take some time for yourself and write a letter to the feeling that you wish was more in your life: happiness, joy, peace, relaxation. What this will do for you, as mentioned, is it'll allow your mind to start thinking of the possibilities. And also it's going to start directing you closer and closer to that feeling. If that makes sense to you, drop me a 111 in the chat if that makes sense to you. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Now, my section is mostly on really supporting yourself in your mental health journey, right? So as I close out the first portion of my session, I want to talk about supporting yourself in more practical steps. Number one, we discussed heavily on your emotions and monitoring them, right? We've done a lot of work over the past 50 or so minutes on just monitoring your emotions, right? Number two, you want to journal. And I'm going to give you guys some journal prompts. I'm going to share them with you verbally and then via email after the session is over. But you want to journal. You want to make journaling a daily practice for yourself, right? Number three, a daily feel-good moment. Now, this is important because studies show that about 50% of Americans wish they had more fun every single day. Even though there's a lot of challenges in my life and a lot of stressors that come into play in my life, I never have a day where I don't take a moment to have fun. Whether that is me and Madeline exchanging memes on Instagram, or catching up over wine, or me just dancing or singing at home, or just watching a movie or something, taking a 10-15-minute nap. It doesn't matter what your feel-good moment is, as long as it's healthy, but it makes you feel good, right? So you want to establish a feel-good moment for yourself every single day. Number four, establish a gratitude practice with a gratitude buddy. Friend, coworker, hey, good morning. 5 things I'm grateful for are so on and so forth. What are you grateful for, right? Simple things. And lastly, which is a little bit more detailed, is find and employ a strategy that works for your mental health. You know, whether it is therapy or coaching or combination of both, right? And then also finding the right coach and the right therapist for you. You want to make sure that it's a perfect match, right? Not every coach is for every single person. Not every therapist is for every single person. It's very important that you go through your journey as openly as possible and being okay with making the adjustments as needed. Before I kick it over to Madeline, any questions that anybody has? If you do, please drop them in the chat box or unmute yourself. Okay, perfect. So passing it over to Miss Madeline Maldonado, my best friend, my sister. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. I always take notes whenever you grace me with your knowledge and your presence, and I'm so thankful for you to be on. So Madeline, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who is here tonight. I always am like, wow, this new generation of people is so open to mental health. Like when I started in this field, I couldn't get 5 people to sit together to listen to me talk about this topic. Like I had to like get them breakfast or something at the mental health clinic. So I want to start with a very interesting coincidence, okay? In 2012, which is 10 years ago, I had 3 clients, 3 of my psychotherapy clients attempt suicide. 2 completed the act and they died. The 3rd one did not. And today, what did I get in the mail? My annual holiday card from my client that survived. She has stayed in touch with me since that time. She credits me with saving her life. I credit her with having sent a note, a letter to me in an email and giving me an opportunity to save her life, which the other 2 clients did not. But it's just so, I mean, of all the days this could arrive in the mail and for me to see it today, postmarked today, It's like, all right, she's with me in mind, body, and spirit. So that means that I have to tell the truth and share authentically with all of you. So I want to start by saying what Andres was talking about stigma. You know, stigma is it's what really is killing people. You know, it's not the depression, because humans have gone through depression since the beginning of time. You know, people have gone through the most traumatic experiences without dying by suicide. You know, people survive, people of color, we survived slavery. We survived hundreds of years of discrimination, right? Not having civil rights. We've survived the Holocaust. I mean, tremendous acts of violence, genocide, and everything else that has been done against us as a community. The majority of people have not attempted and died by suicide. So it's not the depression and the anxiety, it's the stigma. And it's the getting to a place where you really cannot see there being another day. And this is something that my clients over the years who have been survivors of suicide have explained to me, that when people get to a point where they are actually going to commit the act, it's as if they're hypnotized. They're not thinking straight. They're not thinking about their mother, father, dog, brother, spouse, children, their job, how they're going to be missed. None of that comes into their mind. The only thought that is in their mind repetitively is ending the pain. It becomes almost like a chant, a mantra that you hear. It'll be better. It'll be all over. And I apologize if this is triggering to anybody. And if it is, I want to offer support at the end of the session, because I know this is a very sensitive topic. But I think that it's important to speak about it. You know, this secrecy that we have around suicidal thoughts and thoughts to harm ourselves is what's actually harming ourselves. It's what's causing the pain. And, you know, real talk, one of the reasons I am a very good therapist, and thank you, Andres, you know, for always supporting me and bigging me up. But I do think I'm a very good therapist. And one of the reasons I am is because I understand human suffering. I've suffered. I have suffered, and I understand human suffering. And I am willing to get low with people when they are low. And I'm willing to go there when they don't want to live. I'm willing to go there when they are doing things that are very scary. And I'm not abandoning people. And no, I'm not perfect. Like I said, I've been doing this 22 years. I lost 2 people. You know, unfortunately, they never reached out. They never, they resolved to do it. And all of the things we talked about doing, if they ever got to that point, they didn't do it. That was a choice that they made, and I honor their choice. And I'll never forget those 2 women. But I do know that, and it sounds cheesy, we've all heard this before, but I'm going to say it. Suicide is a very permanent solution to a temporary problem. You know, when you're depressed and you're anxious or you're in despair, you think like it's never going to get better. But I can tell you, from having treated hundreds of people since 2000 when I started practicing, and also from being a survivor of trauma, of anxiety, of depression, it gets better. It does get better. If you keep living, it gets better. But once you make that decision that you don't want to live and you take those steps, there really is nothing that anyone can do to help you if you're not here anymore. So again, I hope that that isn't extremely triggering to somebody, but I'm a very direct, keep it real kind of therapist. It's what people have always responded to. You know, I have all the clinical training from when I went to NYU, and I know how to do the, how do you feel? And how does that make you feel? And that's interesting. That doesn't work with a lot of the clients I see. You know, the clients that I see, therapy for them is a matter of life or death. This is not about, you know, exploring their childhood and possibly analyzing. No, it's life or death. It's people who it's either therapy or you're going to go shoot up a place. It's therapy or you're going to die by suicide and take people with you. It's therapy or you can potentially, you know, just hurt people in some way. You know, drug overdose, abusing alcohol, hurting children. So, you know, when I have created a career with people that are so quote unquote high risk, I've just learned they're not that different from any of us. People just get to that level because they've hit a point where they're not taking care of their mental health and the pressure becomes more and more intense and they're going into a crisis. And once you're in crisis, your mind is not rational. You're just thinking whatever is coming to your mind, all these thoughts, you're very overwhelmed, you're very emotional, and you're not thinking rationally. You're not following steps to calm down and bring yourself down at that point. So the goal is to monitor your mental health and monitor your thoughts before you get to that point. Because once you get to that point, that's when you need emergency care. Once you're spiraling like that, it's, we're calling 911, police, people have to come get you. You may have to be, held down or sedated. But there's a big jump from where all of us are tonight and that level of crisis. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because all of us are capable of falling into a level of crisis like that if we just have certain factors come into play. And Andres, if you don't mind, share that screen that talked about mental health challenges or challenges to mental health. I want to talk about that real quick.
Yep, give me 1 second. Let me pull it up for you.
So the reason I want Andres to share this screen again is because, again, in the interest of being authentic and talking real, it's easy to see someone who looks polished, well put together, attractive, they speak well, they're charming, they smile beautifully, and you just don't realize that they're struggling. And I have been that person. I have been a therapist who is helping people in the throes of clinical depression herself. That same year that I lost those 2 clients to suicide, and I almost lost the 3rd client, I was dealing with extreme depression coming from loneliness, a relationship that was falling apart. My engagement was falling apart. I also had a history of relationship trauma. I am a 2-time survivor of intimate partner violence, not domestic violence because it wasn't long-term, years and years with a partner, but on 2 separate occasions, a partner became physically abusive. And so when my engagement, which was supposed to be, the culmination, my happily ever after, wasn't working, I started to spiral. And then on top of that, my father had cancer, stage 4. And I was far away from him. And so that was on my mind every day. And I had financial problems because I had left to go live with my fiance and walked away from a job making 6 figures to make a lot less than that. So finances were on my mind constantly. And then I was having physical health issues, which typically happens when you're very stressed. So I kept having symptoms that nobody could figure out what it was. Is it an immune condition? Is it what? And then what was I doing to help myself? I would work out in the afternoon, show good face to the world, work out. Yes, I'm strong. And then at night I would drink alcohol. My trusted bottle of wine and my bottle of vodka sitting in my walk-in closet. That's what I was doing. And it's taken me, I don't know, 10, 12 years to admit that and say it in an open space, but that is how I was coping. And this is a person who has all the training. But when it happens to you, you're just trying to survive, And I was so embarrassed to go seek help. And then I couldn't find a therapist that was a person of color. And my pride and my resistance to going to see a white therapist kept me suffering probably for about 6 months longer than I needed to be. When I finally gave in, and yes, I went to see a white therapist, and that woman saved my life because she gave me permission to be weak, which to me was this like horrible thing. I'm the daughter of immigrants who came to this country with nothing and overcame incredible odds, including my brother dying. And yes, I studied mental health, but I was raised to be strong. I was raised to be the helper. And I was drowning. And I also can relate. And if we really are honest, all of us have dark thoughts. Okay? The reality is that your thoughts affect your feelings, and that results in behaviors. Please write that down. Your thoughts affect your feelings, which affect your behaviors. And it becomes a cycle because then your behaviors affect your thoughts, which affect your feelings, which affect your behaviors. So it's a loop or it's a triangle that just ping pongs back and over again. So if you're having really dark thoughts, your feelings are going to be in that dark, sadder area of the feelings wheel that Andres showed, right? If you're in that place of thoughts and feelings that are in negativity and sadness, your behaviors are going to follow that, including not taking care of yourself, including, like I was doing, using alcohol when nothing else worked, numbing myself out. You know, a couple of drinks. Wasn't, you know, a bottle of vodka, but if you have 2 drinks every single night, 7 days a week, that becomes something, right? And so how do we move on from that? For me, what helped was understanding the point where I was in trouble and I had to seek help. You know, when I started having dark thoughts, really dark thoughts, like setting fire to my house, like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to set fire to my house, walk away with the insurance money, and go back to New York because I was living out of state. And then I was like, oh my God, tú estás loca. Like, setting fire to your house is a crime. Like, you'll do like time. But that thought came into my mind. I had thoughts to crash my car, literally just drive into a wall. And I was like, oh, okay. I had thoughts to just literally abandon everything and just throw whatever I could in a suitcase and just leave, completely abandon my life. Okay. I had thoughts of harming my ex. I really did. Literally just killing him. Those thoughts probably scared me the most because I was like, I've never wanted to kill somebody or hurt somebody in my life. And I'm actually like letting this linger a lot in my mind. So when I started having those thoughts, I was like, you're not well. You're not well. Wherever this is coming from, you're not well. And that's when I actually went to that therapist and started talking to her. And it took a lot of humility to admit to someone. I mean, I had more training than her, if we really want to, you know, be honest. I had just as much training, probably went to a better school, had a more illustrious career. And here I am crying my eyes out to a white woman in Kansas City, Kansas. But that white woman saved my life. She helped me to go through the thoughts and figure out a real plan. She took away the shame that I was having, the shame that I was, you know, failing, that I was weak, that I had not evolved past the traumatic things I had been through. That was my fear, that because I was struggling, you know, my childhood and every other trauma was catching up to me. And of course, you know, when you're in a place of negativity, your mind is like catastrophizing. You're just thinking, what's going to happen to me? You know, the future is going to be like this. And what's going to happen if my relationship doesn't work? And what's going to happen if I have to go to New York and tell people that I failed? Because a lot of times suicide is also seen as the answer to avoiding embarrassment and humiliation and shame. And we carry a lot of stigma around shame and the fear that people are going to find out that we're not okay, that we're not as strong as we're trying to pretend that we look, you know, that we are. And for us ladies, we hide sometimes our pain under makeup, under nails, under lashes, under working out. You know, men, we hide it under physical fitness, under being charming, and, you know, being physically strong, sexually, you know, promiscuous even. We try to hide it behind that. But none of that stuff works. You're still the same person. You just look beautiful on the outside. So when someone really wants to die, it's not even about dying. It's that they really don't think that there's another way to stop the sadness, the despair, the depression, and the pain. But if people can just hang on long enough to get the treatment, it works. It works. And it doesn't take months and months and years to work. You know, which is the other thing that people are like, you know, it's going to take so long for me to get past this and get over this. It's not. It's a matter of just taking that first step. So knowing when to seek help. And I know Stephanie is going to talk about the suicide hotline and resources in crisis. I'm going to really talk about, you know, seeking help, seeking therapy, seeking support. Whatever it is you're going through, you may think you're the only one. You're not. You're really not. And sometimes there are barriers to seeking therapy. Sometimes you call, there is a waiting list. Sometimes your first choice therapist is booked. So you have to have a number two and number three choice. Sometimes they don't take your insurance. These things happen, but there are resources. Most therapists nowadays will work with sliding scale. If you're not embarrassed to say, hey, my insurance doesn't cover you and your normal rate is way out of my budget. Do you have any kind of arrangements that you make with people? Therapists don't promote that. We don't announce it. You know what I'm saying? We're not telling people, hey, get us at a discount, because we have to live too. But if somebody calls you and tells you that they're going through a situation, most therapists do have some kind of reduced rate if you're willing to show, like your pay stub and say, look, I only earn this much. We all are practicing under a code of ethics where we are here to serve people. So don't be afraid to ask that question. If they say no, or I can't, it's fine, but ask that question. The second thing is there are organizations that do provide therapy low cost, community mental health clinics. There is a resource also called Open Path Collective. If you look that up on Google, Open Path Collective, I believe the membership is $50 for a lifetime, one time $50. And you are able to access their database of therapists who charge no more than $65 for a therapy session. And I'm going to tell you that is an incredible deal, because for a private therapy session, if you don't have insurance, some people in New York City are charging $250 for a session. Okay. That is not my rate, by the way. That is not my clinic's rate, but that is a rate that people charge and people do pay if their insurance, if insurance doesn't cover you. So Open Path Collective is a resource. I put on the chat my mental health clinic as well. Obviously, if you're out of state, this may not work for you, but if you are in New York State, and we are going to be expanding to New Jersey probably in the next 6 months, this may be a resource for you. At the very least, if you need some place to start, reach out. You can go on minetepsychotherapy.com, click contact us. If we can't work with your insurance or whatever is the issue, we will still try to get you connected to some services. Okay. And you can say, Madeline did a presentation and told me to reach out, and my staff will send me the message. So you'll be able to contact me. Okay. You also can send me a message on Instagram, Latina CSW. I do respond. I'm not as quick with the Instagram. Andres knows life is busy, but I do respond. Okay. One last thing that I really want to talk about is how mental health really is like fitness. Okay. A lot of times where we go wrong is that we think that mental health is like a thing that you do for a period of time. And then once you feel better, goodbye. You know how many clients I've had over the years who are like, well, I feel better now, so I don't need to come. And I'm always like, just know the door is open. Why do I say that? Because they're going to come back. They are. If you don't consistently take care of your mental health, you can't maintain it. It's like working out, okay? Yeah, you could get into shape. I've lost 30, 40, 50 pounds, gotten into great shape, all muscular, all cut up, and then I stopped working out. And that's where my six-pack abs went. I stopped working out, or I'm just walking now. I'm not doing the weights anymore, whatever it is. You have to maintain it. Maybe you don't have to do 6 days a week of working out once you get to your goal, but you do have to at least do 3 or 4 days. You have to lift some weights. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just stop lifting weights and think you're going to maintain that muscular look. In the same way, if you make really good progress with your therapy, no, you don't need to be in therapy for the rest of your life, but you do need to do things that support your mental health. So the tips that Andres mentioned, okay, you have to do mental health tips, strategies, techniques pretty much every day. You don't have to do every one every day, because come on, we all are busy, but one thing every day. And you could switch it up. Maybe on Monday you journal. Maybe on Tuesday you have fun. Maybe on Wednesday you call a supportive friend. Maybe on Thursday you do something for yourself, like take a hot bath or rub your feet or whatever it is that makes you relax and feel good. But you have to constantly do something for yourself, because if not, you're always going to be backpedaling. That's why in the chat, I said that mental health and getting to a place where I'm happy has taken me a lot of work, because I've had to literally fight the darkness. I'm human. And I hear some very sad stories all day long. And sometimes I could be like, wow, people are the worst. We therapists think like that too sometimes, especially when we see the things that people do in the news and the community. We're human too. We feel it. And I have to, when I start thinking like that, I'm like, nope, we need to do something because you cannot afford to go down that road, Madeline. You cannot. You know, I'm human. I have moments when I'm frustrated with my own family and I cry. And then I'm like, okay, what are we going to do about this? Because you cannot afford to go down that path for very long. The biggest test for me was during the beginning of the COVID pandemic, where I was in quarantine for 10 consecutive months by myself. At that point in time, I was living alone with a dog and a cat. And, you know, we were living through the worst in New York, where, you know, we didn't know if you could catch it in the air. You didn't want to leave your house. My parents are elderly, they're cancer survivors. So if I would go see them, I would literally stand outside like 8 feet away. And that was once every 2 weeks. So 10 months, 24 hours a day, most days a week, I was by myself. And the big test was, are you going to get depressed? Isolation will do it for most people. But I was able to actually keep a very stable mental health. And I wasn't drinking, because I know everybody's like, well, were you drinking like everybody else was during the pandemic? I had my drinks, but I wasn't overdoing it. For me, what kept me stable and healthy was those mental health tips that Andres was talking about. I worked out almost every day. I ate right. If I did have a drink, it was a drink. Like, I'm going to have a glass of wine while I listen to Cuomo talk, you know, and tell us the world is ending. Okay. But then I'm going to go do something happy. I'm going to watch comedy. I'm going to go play with my dog. I had like dance offs in my apartment with my dog and cat and filmed them and like uploaded them. I was like, this is the stupidest thing, but I have to take it to this level. I prayed. For a lot of us, you know, we may not be religious, but if you're a spiritual person, you have to rely on something bigger than yourself, whatever that may be. And I prayed and I talked to God and I was like, just keep me in one piece until the end of this so I could keep helping people. And I also did things to make me happy, whether that was going for a walk, whether that was calling my friends, having Zoom dinners and Zoom dates with people. I even dated online during the pandemic. Yes, video chatting with guys. Okay, you have your little cocktail, I have mine. And when this is better, we're going to meet up in public. And I made it. So that was the biggest test of my life because I had already been a survivor of depression and anxiety. So I was worried that it was going to come back tenfold, 10 months alone, but it didn't. So I hope that this message has resonated with everybody tonight, that there's hope, that there's treatment, that there's healing that's possible, that you're not alone, that you're not weak if you're going through it, because all of us are going through it. All of us have gone through it. And honestly, that 50% of people who have not been diagnosed with a mental health condition, per the statistics, because they haven't gone to seek an evaluation or treatment. Every human being has the capacity to go through depression, anxiety, PTSD, and everything else. I get calls every day from firemen, police officers, teachers, doctors, lawyers, therapists, calling me to see if I can be their therapist. So I know it's everybody at this point in time. It's not people who have a history of mental illness. It's all the people who could function before, but the pandemic has just leveled people. It's taken away all the things that we used to use to keep ourselves comfortable. So we are here as a resource. I'm going to turn this over to Stephanie in the interest of time, and I hope this was helpful.
Thank you so much, Madeline. So like Andreas had said, I have worked at a crisis hotline before. I'm currently getting my master's in clinical psychology to also become a therapist. And I've worked as a resident assistant with students over the years in their mental health crisis. I do have some slides. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Oh, okay, so it's disabled. Okay, I'm gonna try and just go over them then.
No, Stephanie, go for it. You can share now.
Okay, cool. Cool. 1 second here. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I haven't presented in a minute. Slideshow. Okay, here we go. All right, and again, in the interest of time, I'm gonna kind of go over this quickly, but if you guys have questions after, just let me know. So some general facts when it comes to suicide, the rates have been increasing, especially with the pandemic. It's higher in rural areas. And it's the second leading cause of death for people that are between 10, 14, and 25 and 34. Most people use a firearm. Other ways are suffocating and drug poisoning. People with an increased risk are usually in the LGBTQ community, American Indians, and Alaskan Natives. Also, people who have attempted before or know someone who's completed suicide. People who abuse drug and alcohol, have no community, are struggling with financial problems, or have a history of depression and mental illness. Some of the signs that someone might be suicidal is asking questions like where could they get pills or weapons, or rope, or just other strange questions. Talking about death, writing about death, or dying or suicide, saying they feel like a burden, or that they don't have any point in life or no purpose or helpless, wanting to seek revenge or full of rage, saying they feel trapped, they have no way out, withdrawing within their community or isolating themselves, giving away their possessions. And then one that people don't normally recognize is a sudden shift in their mood. So a lot of people who are actually really serious about killing themselves right before will seem really happy or seem super calm, like nothing's wrong. Or maybe they were like really, really depressed and all of a sudden they're like, everything's fine. Usually that's an indication that actually they're thinking of killing themselves. So how to help? The biggest thing I think I want to really make a point of is just being really direct with people that you think might be suicidal. So saying, are you having thoughts about suicide, or have you thought about killing yourself? A lot of people are scared that this might put ideas in people's heads or make them think of doing it when they weren't before. But truthfully, in most cases, this is actually very relieving for people that are suicidal, because a lot of people don't want to talk about suicide and they don't want to talk about something that's so heavy. So they're finally like, oh, this is someone who's willing to talk to me about what I'm feeling. So it's also really important that when you ask, you're not expressing any negative judgment. You're just asking in a very unconditional way. Um, and then also that you express empathy. So if they do open up to you, you're expressing empathy for what they're going through, even if it seems like it's not that big a deal. So if they're like, my goldfish died, a lot of the times people will use what's called displacement as a coping mechanism. So they'll give you something that doesn't seem that bad, or like maybe it'll be like, oh, me and my sister got in a fight. But really, that's not what it's about. That's just what their brain's focusing on, because the deeper feelings are too much to tell you, even, or maybe they just don't want to open up about it. So just keep that in mind, that if someone is opening up about something small, it could be bigger. So just be empathetic about whatever it is that they feel like is devastating for them in that moment. And then make sure you always respect someone's culture, especially if you don't know them that well. So like, be careful about touching them, or about having really intense eye contact. Just kind of mirror someone's behaviors. That's just general psychology 101. If they're looking down, just give them that space that they need. Um, and then make sure to tell them that suicidal thoughts are fairly common. This often makes people feel like they're not alone, because they are really common. And a lot of the times, I wanted to touch on the fact that suicidal thoughts aren't necessarily because they intend to kill themselves, but a lot of the times what happens is there's a part of our brain that feels abandoned, like we're not um, giving it attention. And so what it will do is cry out for help. And so it'll be like, you know what, Stephanie, if you don't start taking care of yourself, like you're gonna have to kill yourself, because you're not listening. You're not listening to us. We need your help. We need you to pay attention to how we're feeling. And so a lot of times it's the child part that just felt trapped when they were younger and didn't have a way out, or it's a part of you from a past experience where you really didn't have a way out, and it's just looking for help, right? So just keep that in mind when talking to someone, that it's a normal experience. It doesn't have to be this big thing that feels overwhelming for you and for them. Um, Try to make them feel more grounded in the experience, that what they're going through is something that a lot of people go through. And then um, when to seek professional help. So um, to know whether or not it's something that you need to involve like 911 and have a 5150, definitely ask if they have a plan. And if someone has a very specific plan, so let's say you ask them, have you thought about killing yourself? And it could be that simple, about how you will kill yourself, sorry. It could be that simple. If they know when they're going to do it, where they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it, that puts them at a significantly higher risk. And at that point on, you need to take it extremely serious. And not saying that you shouldn't before. Also, like, use your judgment as far as whether or not they're being completely honest with you. Um, or if this is just something that they needed to talk about. But definitely at that point, you need to make sure that you're intervening, because you could be the last person that they're talking to. So other factors that might make them high risk is if they're intoxicated, either drugs or alcohol, a previous attempt, or a recent loss, whether that's financial, a person that they lost to a death, or a relationship, any kind of loss. Um, you want to make sure from that point on that you're staying with this person until you can find help. So don't leave that person alone, at least for the next 36 hours until these feelings pass. And create a safety plan. So a safety plan looks like finding a way to make sure that they no longer have access to those means. And I don't know if I said that, but if they have access to those means, that's like, you need to call 911 for sure for that. And make sure that they do not have access. So like if they say, hey, like I'm going to do it tonight and I have a gun, um, that's definitely something where you need to involve a professional. And I know it seems scary because you might be scared of like legal ramifications, but just know that they know how to deal with it. And even if it's not ideal, putting someone in a position where maybe there's a financial burden, you can there's definitely resources to have medical bills covered, and things like that. And it's more important that they get that help and that they're safe than losing their life. So just make sure to always weigh that cost out, because a lot of people will kind of like rationalize with you, oh, please don't call someone, like I can't afford it. I can't afford to be put in a mental institution, or they suck. And there's definitely been a lot of recourse about that recently. But just again, remember, yes, it's not ideal. We definitely want to keep working on the mental health system that we currently have in place, but it is saving their life. So at least for that moment. Um, and then if they are able to get down to a de-escalated place, or if they don't necessarily have a plan, they're just struggling with this. There is now a text line. You can call or text 988, and that will connect you with the hotline, and they can talk through options with that person as well. And I wanted to go over, I know a lot of people had mentioned that they were looking for support for themselves as well. I'll do it very quickly because I know we're out of time, but just some things to do if you're feeling suicidal yourself. Focusing on beingness. So I think a lot of the times, this again could come from being overwhelmed, whether it's just one part of you or all parts of you are feeling overwhelmed. So just focusing back on the fact that you just being alive and your presence is more than enough. Like truthfully, like the entire world would be different without you here. And that just you being here is enough. So everything else can fall away. If your job falls apart, if you lose all your friends, if you can't, do everything that you're supposed to do in the day, that's okay. That's okay. The fact that you're here, that's more than enough. And everybody else and all their expectations will go away, you know. And it can all be solved, but you being here is more important than all that. Involving yourself in a community, whether that's a church community, a politics. I put Disney adults. I love Disney. That's part of my therapy plan. I'll find any reason to go to Disneyland. But you know, whatever you can get. I know my sister, she has a Australian Shepherd, and she found a walk group on Facebook. So I mean, there's definitely a community for everyone, and it's so important that you have people to support you, because we all need we all need a whole bandwagon of people. All of us. We all need, you know, 10, 20 people around us that we can call at any time and say, hey, I need help. Because sometimes that one person that you're always going to can't be there. So you want to make sure that you have multiple people that can have that resource and be there for you. Also, mindfulness techniques. I know Madeline touched on finding a therapist, and there's lots of cheap options here in LA, where I'm at. Definitely, like if you go to a college, they'll see you for $15. I know even if you want to go to Vanguard and get therapy, where I work, you can come see me. Um, Deep breathing exercises. A lot of the times, it's actually just it can be our systems overloaded. So when you're deep breathing, it actually puts your parasympathetic system back online, and you're able to have more rational thoughts. So just having that mind body connection again is super helpful. We talked about journaling already, but I just want to say journaling your feelings. I know it's helpful for me. I've learned to journal my feelings in different colors. And so then I could kind of get a better idea of like how much of each feeling I'm feeling that week. And then be able to put more emphasis on the feelings that I want to feel. And also journaling when you take care of yourself, because I know for myself, I've learned that just like taking a shower some days is really hard. Like, and so if I journal like all the things I did for myself today, whether it was drink water, take a shower, brush my hair, you know, the little things, like I started doing that, then I started taking bigger steps to care for myself, because um, like I said, everything else falls away, but the most important person, most important thing in life is taking care of yourself. And then questioning your thoughts. If you start to have thoughts, not even necessarily about suicide, but just like we said, we've all had dark thoughts. If you put just a question mark there, like, for example, like I used to have a lot of self-hatred thoughts. So I just started saying to myself, why do we hate Stephanie? You know, just asking myself the question, what about Stephanie do we hate so much? And you'd be surprised what might come up for you, because a lot of the times we have subconscious parts that can answer those questions, and it will lead back to a traumatic event in your life that has nothing to do necessarily with your current experiences, but it's something that's replaying from your past. And you're able to then address that. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I know I went over this super fast, but if you need support, please reach out. If it's not to me, to one of these people, but just know that you're loved. And if you have any questions, my DMs are always open. I'll put my Instagram in the chat. And yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much. You absolutely crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. Real quickly before we get into wrapping up things, one thing that I want to quickly expand upon that both Stephanie and Madeline talked about is how your thoughts affect your feelings, which affect your behaviors, right? Studies show that on average, everybody has at least between 60,000 thoughts to maybe 90,000 thoughts, most of which are at least 50% subconscious, maybe up to 95 of them are subconscious thoughts. And every thought produces a chemical reaction in your body, right? Whether it's small or great, right? So the purpose of bringing that up is if most of your thoughts are leaning towards heavy negative emotions, then it is going to impact how your body is going to physically feel and be, right? That's why it is so important that you do monitor your thoughts, check in with your feelings, because not only does it affect your behavior, but it also affects your body and how your body is behaving in that day, right? Before we wrap this thing up, I want to quickly just go over one last thing, and then I want to open up the floor for whoever wants some support. And that is just on the quick topic of mental, not the quick topic, but I'm going to cover it as quickly as possible on mental clutter, just because mental clutter isn't a mental illness, but it can contribute to mental illnesses, right? And especially because we live in a day and age where we're constantly surrounded by information, always overloaded with something that is stimulating our brain, right? And essentially, mental cluttering is when your mind is literally just that, cluttered with so many emotions, sentiments, thoughts, and it needs to be released, right? When it comes to mental clutter, the real crux of the issue is it's almost a misalignment between what's happening in the short term and what you feel your life should be like, you know? So meaning if you're constantly overworked and overloaded, but you feel like your life should be easier and more peaceful, you should have more money and more things that you aren't currently experiencing, it's going to lead to a discrepancy internally that's going to lead to the feeling of overwhelm and exhaustion and overwork, right? And that's important because when it comes to mental clutter, it can really influence your overall mental health. And it can also perpetuate pre-existing and potential mental illnesses, right? So it's something that can lead to an illness, or it can contribute to something that's already existing already. Now, when it comes to mental decluttering, it is a practice, right? It's a habitual practice that you want to employ because we live life every single day. And it is something that you may want to do, whether it is journaling or finding a way to decompress via meditation or deep breathing, like Stephanie said, that would allow you some level of peace and less resistance mentally. Now, some of the side effects that can tell you when you're ready to mentally declutter are if you're irritable, if you're having a lot of trouble focusing, if you're increasingly unproductive, and if you're feeling burnt out. You know, those are all things that are very, very human. If you're going through any of those things right now or multiple things right now, it just means you're human and you're going through a period in your life where maybe you need to take a break and a reset and allow your brain and your mind to decompress, because it would be much more feasible for you to decompress, whether it is to venting, like Madeline just said in the chat box, or journaling and going through the mental decluttering portion regularly, than having a more extreme and intense situation in the future, right? As Madeline mentioned, it is much more difficult to come down when you're spiraling, right? And part of this session is to help you guys to not spiral, right? Even if it is calling a friend, Madeline will tell you, I've called Madeline plenty of times to vent, and vice versa, right? And this isn't in my PowerPoint, but you need those people in your life that just let you be who you are, right? Granted, it may not be, it shouldn't be your clients, it shouldn't be, your coworkers, if that's not, it's usually not the appropriate place, but you do need to find those people that would allow you to be human, because we're human. Above anything else, whether you're a teacher, a professor, a parent, a coach, a therapist, a counselor, you are a person, you are human. And human being means just that you're being a human person, right? Now, causes of mental cluttering, as mentioned, information overload, heightened expectations. You may have too many expectations that you're trying to live up to, whether external or internal, right? You may be increasingly hard on yourself, right? Which is something that I can relate to. Lastly, thirdly, responsibilities. You may need to manage how many responsibilities you're committing yourself to, right? There is such a thing as overcommitting yourself. Fourthly, procrastinated actions. If you're seeing yourself procrastinating a lot of things that need to get done, at some point that is going to affect your mental health. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is unresolved negative feelings. That's why journaling, having a therapist, having a practice that would allow you to divulge those feelings, which we did a little bit on at the beginning of the session. The last things, right? I'm going to share these with you via email, but you want to ask yourself a few questions about when it is time for you to mentally declutter. Things like, have I been avoiding small yet required tasks? Things like, is making decisions, whether it is me trying to figure out what am I going to have for dinner, becoming more and more difficult every single day? Are you falling victim to functional procrastination, which is when you're doing things that keep you busy, but distracted from what is more important for you to do, right? And also, if you're feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, or uninspired the majority of the time, right? I will share these with you guys, these resources, and any other resources that Madeline and Stephanie may have via email. So don't feel like you need to get these down. But I wanted us to quickly go through them because it is so important for you to, especially if you're on this session, we're going to open up the floor in a few minutes, to ask for whatever support you may need. Now, to close this little section up, if you answered yes to any of these 4 questions, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're functionally procrastinating, you're doing little things like reorganizing your furniture for the 5th time, you should be going through your paperwork or focusing on your job, or if you're having a really hard time just picking out your outfits every morning and it's not feeling exciting, right? If you're going through these difficult challenges for small things or seemingly small things, it may be time for you to declutter. Even if it's yes to one of those questions, it is probably time for you to declutter, right? Now, mental declutter is so important because it is a practice that can help prevent the full-blown evolution and display of things like depression or anxiety or PTSD or OCD or whatever other form of mental illness that exists. 4 keys to decluttering. It is journaling. And I'm going to share with you guys via email the prompts that will help you journal effectively. Identifying what are the things that need to get done, the things that need to get handled. Thirdly, organizing yourself, organizing your mind, right? I recommend that you often make a list of everything that needs to get done, right? Seeing what is priority, what is important, what is, potentially, life-changing, and organizing this list in such a way, whether it is an emotional list or your list of finances or just the things that are worrying you, and then executing. You may not have the perfect plan, you may not have the most definitive action steps, but executing on this list, part of mental health requires action. First you want to know what is troubling you, what is bothering you, how you are feeling, and then you must take action, right? Your transformation is not just relying on information, but it's also on action, right? You need both. So again, just to quickly summarize, journal however you're feeling, what you're thinking, identifying what is troubling you, what is bothering you, right? And then lastly, you want to make sure that you know exactly what it is that needs to get done. Maybe not perfectly, right? But organizing it in a way that would allow you to make a little bit of an action plan for then you to execute on. And yes, it does take work, but it is a process that is definitely worth your time and your energy because you are worth it. Now, I want to leave you guys with this quote before we open up the floor for anybody that needs support. And it's from Albus Dumbledore. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. But it says, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light. I don't know what everybody may be going through independently. Madeline may not know, Stephanie may not know. Some of you guys I know a little bit more intimately than others, but I know this, that everybody goes through something, whether it is now or in the future. We live in a world where unfortunately not everything goes our way. Oftentimes we are to learn from the situations, but it doesn't mean that just because logically we know we're supposed to go through something or learn something that it makes it any easier. Really doesn't make it any easier, right? And what I want to offer up is that you remember that even though you may be in a difficult, challenging time right now, you may not have the finances, you may be looking for a job, you may be broke, you may be completely stressed, going through health issues, you may be challenged, you may be heartbroken, right? That there is light available to you. There is light available to you, whether it is via this webinar or via a friend, via me or Madeline or Stephanie, right? And at some point you could be that light for somebody else, because everybody in this webinar is a light, right? Your light may not be as bright as it used to be, but you are a light. Your light may be a little bit on the dimmer side and maybe one away from blowing out, but your light is still on, right? And what I want to remind you is that no matter what it is that you're going through, and you may have no idea how you're going to get past it, that it is very, very possible for you to get past it. With that being said, I want to open up the floor for anybody that wants to get some support. So if you are in need, have a question, we'll stay on for a few more minutes. Please definitely unmute yourself and let's have at it.
I had a question that I put in the chat actually. It was about burnout. So any of three of you can answer. But what are your best like tips for recovering from burnout? And I want to add, we're also recovering from, we'll say, some of the things that you guys talked about, more severe forms of what you just talked about.
Madeline, I want to kick over off the question for you first, because I feel like you have a lot of insight, especially just launching your clinic this year, which, by the way, your website looks amazing. I can't wait to visit it in person.
Thank you.
And because you two are an entrepreneur and you're busy, entrepreneur, professor, social worker, boss woman extraordinaire, like, I would love to hear your response.
I actually have had to overcome burnout. In 2015, I walked away from social work. Walked away. I had to take a year off. I knew I was going to come back. I just knew I couldn't continue working the way that I was working because I had completely lost my joy. And I always used to say, the day that I have to take medication or drink to do this job, I need to take a time out, because I was born to do this, and I've loved it even again when I was going through difficult times. So burnout for me was just, I lost my joy. I didn't want to do it. I was very irritable. I was doing my job enough to get by, but I was doing it with zero creativity. And at that point, I was supervising staff and I was taking my burnout out on them. You know, they would always say, you know, we knock on your door and you just give us this like really intense look. It was a look of leave me the F alone. And, you know, I took a year off. I went into a different field. I was doing health and wellness, very light, you know, nothing stressful. And it helped me to recover from the burnout. I also needed that time to revamp myself. You know, that year off is where I reinvented myself from a person who worked as an administrator at mental health clinics to a business owner. That's where I came up with the idea for my business practice and how I could become a consultant and what it would look like. That was the first time I started thinking in my mind, I could have my own clinic. And this was in 2015. But I needed that space to say, I can do this. I may not be able to do it right now, but I can do this. You know, the seed was planted, the creativity, the spark was ignited. But you need to give yourself that time, that space. Take a break. You know, when your iPhone overheats, everybody knows you give that thing a break. You know, that it's like a baby. You lay it down. No, my baby's overheating. You know, we don't have to be sick to give ourselves a break. You know, for a lot of us, the only way we take a break is if we literally are knocked out, sick with the flu, sick with COVID, or in a hospital bed. It doesn't have to be that extreme. Give yourself a break. You know, I've learned Friday, I was not feeling well. I was not sick. I was just emotionally drained. I was like, you know what? I'm canceling everybody. There's nobody that's in a crisis. I will see you all next week. And I took the whole day to just sit and do my paperwork, which for me was the break that I needed. That was the break that I needed. And I was able to like take a break and watch the show on Prime that I've been watching, the one with Jack Ryan, the CIA. I've discovered it like 5 years too late, but I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with that show. It's just about international espionage, completely different from my life, but I gave myself a little break to watch a couple of episodes. I ordered takeout. I just kind of chill. You got to give yourself a break. So that's really what I recommend. You have to take that space to allow yourself to think. A lot of times, if we don't give ourselves quiet time, we can't come up with creative ideas. We can't hear that voice that all of us have inside of us. Some of us literally hear it. Some of us, it shows up as ideas, but we all have a voice. I think it's a connection to spirit. I really do. And so if you're always on the go and your mind is cluttered, you can't hear that voice, and that creative spark can't be ignited. So taking a break. If you're burned out, there's no shame in that. Take a break. You have to take a break.
And I want to just add really quickly, and then I'll take another share. And sometimes taking a break may mean like planning certain things and like deciding what gets done. right? Most urgently, because sometimes like you may be a parent and you can't take a break from your kids, right? But you may need to choose on certain days. I just can't do everything. I don't have the energy. I don't have the emotional capacity, I maybe financially it would be a little irresponsible to order dinner, but if I need to order dinner for my peace of mind and I can afford it, then order dinner so that mentally you can take a break, right? So it's also like picking and choosing, prioritizing like what are the most essential things that you may need to do. Because I'll be honest, when I was going through my depression, you couldn't tell me to do half the things I would do today. It was just not going to happen. I didn't have the energy, the desire, the emotion. All that I was doing, I was like, at this point, I can only survive and get better, right? So you may also need to be taking an honest assessment of like, what is actually an essential part of your life day to day? And that'll look differently every single day. And then Bree, to answer your last question about what recovery kind of looks like after, there's no concrete answer or uniform answer. There's like strategies that people will go through and will employ, but that process looks different. I always just say you should gauge the efficacy of the progress based on how you're feeling and how you're acting. We will know if we're feeling good, if we're feeling bad, and if we're getting a little bit better, right? And not intuitively, what comes to mind is not comparing the speed or the velocity of your journey to somebody else's, because everybody's mind is different. Everybody's situation is different. Something that could be traumatizing for you could not be traumatizing for somebody else. And there's no right or wrong. It is what it is per person. So not comparing whatever your journey or your process looks like for anybody else. Bree, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I want to add something real quick. Simplifying our lives. Like right now, we are in the home stretch of the end of the year. And this is when a lot of us try to get done what we didn't do the whole year, or our family starts to pressure us. And my whole thing is, you know what? We have to simplify things. I work a lot. I can cook, I can bake, I could decorate. Guess what's not happening ever? Me cooking, baking, or decorate for any of my family and friends. What am I counted on for? I will bring a good gift and I will bring something I could purchase, something catered. I will bring you a bottle of champagne. Don't ask me to make you a coquito. It's not going to happen. And I know how to make an amazing one. Simplify your life.
Yep.
I always say to people, when I retire and I'm, on the Real Housewives of Westchester County, yes, I'm going to be doing all that stuff. Until then, there's no guilt. A lot of us are running, trying to buy gifts, trying to buy this, trying to make sure your kid goes to every Christmas holiday thing. What matters is an experience, time together.
Yep.
Maybe you can't take your child to all these holiday things, but you can create a holiday experience on a Friday night in your house. Bake some cookies, watch some TV, and just have that moment.
Yeah.
Make some videos or something, because we pressure ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's because we're also comparing. It's like, oh, well, I'm seeing so-and-so is doing all this stuff and posting it and sharing it. Like I said, I can cook. The last time somebody had my home cooking was probably, 10 years ago. I can cook. I have nothing to prove. And I think that, for a lot of us, we have to get out of that mindset that we have to be perfect or prove something or, keep up with whoever it is that we feel we need to keep up with. It triggers a lot of stress, unnecessary stress. And I come from a Dominican family where, they talk about me left and right because I am like this, because I don't cook, because I don't stress myself with certain things.
Yeah.
I don't even stress myself with gifts anymore. If I can't do it, you're going to get what I can do for you, which could include an experience. Let's meet up in January. I'll buy you lunch or dinner or whatever. But I can't make myself do more than what I'm already doing. And for some of us, we feel bad because, you're saying, oh, well, I'm not even that busy. Again, it's not a competition. If you do not feel that you can take on extra responsibility, extra tasks, extra things right now, you don't owe anybody that. You really don't.
Yeah.
Even your own children. You have to be well to take care of your own children. You have to be. And kids are gonna be fine if they don't go to every holiday event or every sporting event. You know, they're gonna be fine. Sometimes our guilt tells us they're not, but they really will. There is no research that shows that kids have psychological trauma from missing sporting events and holiday events. There is no research backing that.
Amazing, amazing. Anybody else want to get some support really, really quickly? Or not quickly, but just want to get some
A
support?
question, comment, anything that we can offer. We're here for you.
Nobody. Okay, okay. First of all, Madeline, Stephanie, thank you so much. I am so excited. I'm so thankful. I hear my delivery guy delivering my food right now, so perfect timing. But no, seriously, guys, I'm so thankful for you both. You guys absolutely delivered so much information. I couldn't be more grateful and honored to have shared this space with you. For everybody else, the participants, the guests, we are incredibly honored. I will speak on behalf of Madeline and Stephanie. We are incredibly ready to support you in any which way. You can connect with us online, on Instagram, whatever which way. You have my info. I will send out the journal prompts via email. So give us some time, and I'll also upload this Zoom on YouTube so you guys can watch the replay at your convenience and share with anybody else that may be in need of support, right? And if you guys need anything from any one of us, our DMs are open. Like Stephanie said, we are here to support you. We wish everybody an amazing, amazing holiday season, whatever you celebrate. We just hope and pray that if you're going through anything, that this helped out a little bit in any which way. But on that note, guys, take care. I love you all, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye, guys.